Imagine standing just a few feet away from a dog, and feeling pure fear. Not because you're scared of dogs. Not because you're weak. But because this dog, he wanted you gone. This wasn't just barking or a little growl. This was rage. Deep, explosive, terrifying rage. Meet Max, a German shepherd that nobody could get near. He wasn't just aggressive. He was a storm bottled up inside a cage. Every time someone walked past his kennel, he would launch himself at the door, teeth bared, muscles tense, eyes wild. Staff members had to warn visitors to stay clear of his section. Even seasoned trainers kept their distance. Max wasn't just unpredictable, he was dangerous. One wrong move, one wrong look, and he would explode, snarling and snapping like he was fighting for his life. People whispered about him around the shelter. Some said he was broken. Some believed he was beyond saving. Everyone agreed on one thing. Max was untouchable. But what nobody knew back then was that the scariest dog in the shelter wasn't angry at all. He was something else entirely. And it would take someone very unexpected to show the world who Max truly was. Max wasn't born angry. No dog ever is. Once upon a time, he was just a small, clumsy puppy. Big paws, floppy ears, a wagging tail that couldn't stop moving. He trusted everyone. He loved everything. The world was one big playground. But somewhere along the way, the world failed him. The stories about Max's past were blurry, pieced together from broken records and quiet rumors. Some said he had been chained up outside his whole life. Others said he was passed from home to home, people giving up on him every time he made a mistake. No real training. No real love. Just harsh words, heavy hands, and a growing fear that nobody could be trusted. Imagine living every single day not knowing if you were safe. Imagine learning that the only way to protect yourself was to strike first. That's what Max learned. That was his survival. Bark louder. Bite harder. Push everyone away before they had the chance to hurt you first. By the time he arrived at the shelter, Max wasn't just scared, he was broken inside. The staff wanted to help him. They really did. But fear was the only language Max spoke anymore. And the saddest part, behind all the barking, behind all the snarling, was a dog who was simply terrified to hope again. At first, the shelter staff believed they could turn things around. After all, they had seen tough dogs before. They had helped them heal, find homes, start fresh. So, they tried. Oh, they tried everything. Professional trainers were brought in, trainers who had worked with the most challenging cases. They stood outside Max's kennel, speaking softly, offering treats, avoiding direct eye contact to show they meant no harm. Max didn't care. He would slam his body against the gate so hard, it rattled on its hinges. He would bark and growl until his throat went raw. He wanted no friends. He trusted no hands. Some tried a different method, just sitting near him for hours, saying nothing, just existing. It didn't matter. Max kept his distance. Eyes narrowed. Muscles tense. Waiting for the next betrayal he was sure would come. Days turned into weeks. Weeks blurred into months. Nothing changed. Max was still the dangerous dog in the back row, the one nobody visited. The one nobody could even hope to adopt. Even the bravest volunteers, the ones who had seen it all, slowly gave up. Some started avoiding his section completely. It wasn't worth the risk, they said. It wasn't safe. In whispered conversations, a hard truth began to surface. If Max couldn't be helped, if he couldn't be rehabilitated, there was only one heartbreaking option left. And every day that passed, Max's time quietly ran out. It seemed like his story was already written. A tragic ending that nobody could stop. But life has a funny way of surprising us. Especially when hope feels all but lost. Just when everyone had almost given up on Max, fate sent someone nobody expected. She wasn't a professional trainer. She wasn't a shelter worker. She wasn't even tall enough to reach the top of Max's kennel door. She was a little girl. No older than 7. Her name was Lily. Tiny, with messy hair and a pair of sneakers that lit up when she walked. She didn't know Max was dangerous. She hadn't read his file. She didn't see a monster. All Lily saw was a dog who looked very, very sad. The first time she visited the shelter with her mom, she walked right past all the cute, happy puppies. Right past the dogs wagging their tails, begging for attention. And she stopped in front of Max's cage. Shelter staff rushed over, their voices tight with panic. "Sweetheart, you need to step away from that one. He's not safe." But Lily didn't move. She just stood there, quietly, about a foot away from Max's door. And for the first time in a very, very long time, Max didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He didn't snarl. He just stared at her. Confused. Curious. Like he wasn't quite sure what to do with this tiny human who wasn't afraid of him. The staff held their breath. One wrong move, and Max could snap. One wrong move, and everything could go horribly wrong. But Lily didn't make a wrong move. She just smiled, a small, soft smile, and sat down on the floor, right outside his kennel. No sudden movements. No loud noises. No fear. Just a little girl. And a broken dog. Seeing each other for the very first time. It wasn't much. It wasn't some dramatic scene where the skies parted, and the angels sang. But in that moment, it felt like the whole world stopped. Lily, still sitting quietly on the floor, didn't try to touch Max. She didn't try to call him over. She didn't even stand up. She just waited. She was there. She existed, with no fear, no agenda. Just a little girl, offering nothing but her presence. Max stood there, his body rigid, his eyes locked on her. For the first time, he didn't growl. For the first time, he didn't pace. He didn't charge the door, teeth bared, ready to bite. Instead, something strange happened. His ears flicked. He tilted his head, just a little. His breath, usually fast and sharp, slowed down. And then, just a tiny bit. He relaxed. It was almost unnoticeable. But it was there. Max didn't lunge. Max didn't bark. He paused. The staff stood frozen, watching in disbelief. It wasn't just the calmness that shocked them. It was the look in Max's eyes. A look that, for the first time, seemed almost curious. As Lily sat there, she didn't flinch. She didn't try to rush the moment. She didn't try to force anything. All she did was sit. And wait. And slowly, very slowly, Max started to take small, cautious steps toward her. The tension was unbearable. Would he snap? Would he bite? Would everything fall apart in an instant? But Max didn't do any of that. Instead, he reached the edge of his cage, standing just a few inches from Lily. And with the gentleness no one thought he had in him, Max sat down. He wasn't growling. He wasn't lunging. His body wasn't tense. In that moment, Max was simply a dog. A dog who was tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of being alone. And Lily? Lily just smiled again. A smile that reached her eyes. A smile that Max, somehow, understood. That day, something changed. Something so small, yet so powerful. It was like the first crack in a long, dark wall of fear. Lily didn't come to the shelter every day, but when she did, she never missed a visit with Max. And every time she came, she did the same thing. She didn't rush in. She didn't try to force anything. She just sat. She waited. And she let Max come to her. The shelter staff watched in amazement. At first, they thought it was a fluke, maybe Max was just having a good day. But no. Each time Lily returned, something new happened. Max's reactions were still cautious, still guarded. But they were softer. Slightly less defensive. His body didn't tense up as much when she was around. He didn't bark at the sight of her. Instead, he stood there, observing her. And Lily? She kept doing what she did best, being patient, being gentle. She didn't move quickly, didn't raise her voice. She let Max take his time, at his own pace. She didn't expect him to change overnight. She understood that trust couldn't be rushed. On her third visit, Max did something that made the entire shelter hold their breath. He stepped closer. A single step. But it was more than anyone had ever seen him do before. And Lily? She didn't flinch. She didn't jump up in excitement. She just sat there, calm and steady. Max watched her, his body now almost relaxed, his eyes soft. For the first time, his tail gave a tiny, hesitant wag. It wasn't much, but to Lily, and to everyone who had been watching, it was everything. A sign that Max wasn't just reacting out of fear anymore. He was starting to trust. Little by little. Step by step. The staff could hardly believe it. Trainers started to notice a difference. Max wasn't just tolerating people anymore. He was beginning to choose to be near them. To want their company. Max's walls weren't all gone. But they were crumbling. And for the first time in his life, he was starting to understand what it meant to be safe. What it meant to be loved. And the more time Lily spent with him, the more the transformation grew. Not just in Max, but in everyone around him. And then, one day, it happened. The moment they had all been waiting for. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks, no sudden bursts of joy. But in the quiet of that room, in the stillness of the shelter's back corner, something profound happened. Lily was sitting by Max's cage, like she always did. She wasn't doing anything special. She wasn't trying to coax him with treats or commands. She was just being there, calm, steady, patient. Max, who had been standing just a few feet away, seemed a little different that day. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't looking over his shoulder, eyes wild, waiting for danger. He wasn't even staring at Lily like he used to, wondering what she might do next. No. Today. Max was relaxed. Lying down, eyes half closed, his breathing slow and steady. And then. He did something that made every heart in the room skip a beat. He stepped forward. Just one step. A tiny, almost hesitant movement. But it was everything. For the first time in months, Max wasn't just sitting there, observing from a distance. He was reaching out. Literally and figuratively. Lily, of course, didn't react in any big way. She didn't jump up or scream with excitement. She just let him come closer. Her eyes soft. Her voice a whisper as she spoke, "Hey, Max. It's okay." Max paused for a moment, as if deciding whether or not to trust her. And then. He moved again. Closer. And before anyone could blink, Max's head was right there, just inches from Lily's hand. Lily didn't hesitate. She slowly, gently, extended her hand toward him. She didn't rush it. She didn't demand anything. She just offered it. An invitation. A promise that she wouldn't hurt him. For a long moment, Max just looked at her hand. And then. He did it. He touched her. It was the lightest, softest touch. His nose brushed against her hand, and his tail twitched. Just a little wag. A tiny acknowledgement that, for the first time in his life, Max was choosing to trust. Choosing to connect. In that moment, the entire shelter seemed to hold its breath. It was more than just a simple gesture. It was a breakthrough. A miracle. And all it took was patience. A little girl, who never gave up on a dog everyone else had written off. From that day on, something incredible began to happen. It wasn't just Max who was changing. It was everyone around him. Lily, who had been so patient, so steady, continued visiting him every chance she got. And each time, it was a little bit easier. A little bit quieter. A little bit more natural. Max, who had once been so tense, so fearful, now started showing a different side of himself. The staff could hardly believe their eyes. Max, the dangerous German shepherd, who had once lunged at anyone who came near, was now calmly lying down beside Lily. His tail wagging softly, his eyes no longer filled with rage, but curiosity. Maybe even affection. Each day, Max took small steps forward, not just physically, but emotionally. He learned that he didn't have to guard himself every second. He didn't have to hide behind the wall of anger he had built for so long. With Lily's gentle care and the patience she showed him, Max began to let his guard down more and more. He stopped growling when someone passed his kennel. He stopped looking for danger in every corner. And slowly, he started to trust the other people at the shelter too. The staff, the volunteers, even the trainers who had once been afraid to approach him. It wasn't a perfect transformation. There were still moments of fear. There were still days when Max needed space. But the dog who had once been labeled unadoptable was beginning to show the world who he really was. And who he really was a dog who just needed love. A dog who just needed someone to show him that not all humans would hurt him. Not all hands would be cruel. And Lily, with her quiet, unshakable trust in him, had done what no one else could. She had unlocked Max's heart. It wasn't just about the two of them anymore. Max was changing, but so was the way the shelter viewed him. The staff, who had once resigned themselves to the idea that Max might never be adoptable, now began to see the possibility of a new future for him. They could see a dog who was no longer consumed by fear. A dog who was capable of love. And it was a powerful thing to witness. Months passed. Max's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The dog who had once been so fearful of the world, so quick to lash out, was now the dog who greeted visitors with a wagging tail. A soft bark. And eyes that no longer carried the weight of anger and distrust. The shelter staff, who had once feared for their safety, now spoke about Max with pride. He was no longer the dangerous dog. He was simply Max, a dog who had learned to trust, to love, and to be loved in return. And it was all thanks to Lily. That little girl who never gave up on him. But the real turning point came when the shelter received an adoption inquiry. At first, the staff were cautious. They hadn't fully expected Max to find a home so soon. But when they saw who had applied, their hearts skipped a beat. It was a family, a mom, a dad, and 2 kids. They had heard Max's story. They had seen the changes. And they were ready to welcome him into their home. And just like that, the day came. Max, who had once been so alone, was finally leaving the shelter. He was going home. As the family walked through the door to meet him, Max stood by Lily's side. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't hiding behind anyone. He walked forward, confidently, without hesitation. The family crouched down, offering their hands, and Max, for the first time, reached out to them without fear. He sniffed their hands, his tail wagging in excitement, then looked up at Lily. She smiled, her face glowing with happiness, and whispered, "You're ready now, Max." The moment was perfect. It wasn't just Max getting a second chance. It was the start of a whole new life for him. A life filled with love, trust, and a family who would never give up on him. And as the family walked out of the shelter with Max by their side, Lily watched them go, her heart full of joy and peace. She knew Max was in good hands. She knew he would be happy. It was the ending she had always hoped for. A story that began with fear, pain, and brokenness, and ended with love. A new beginning. For Max. And for Lily. Because sometimes, the most unexpected friendships create the most amazing transformations. And sometimes, all it takes is one small person to show the world what true trust and love really mean. As we close Max's story, it's easy to see how far he's come. But this isn't just about a dog learning to trust. It's about something deeper. Something we all can relate to. Max didn't change because he suddenly became better or more obedient. He didn't change because someone told him to. He changed because someone believed in him. Someone saw beyond his pain. Someone reached out when everyone else had written him off. Lily, with her innocent heart and patient soul, did what the world so often forgets. She gave love freely, without expectation, without fear. And that's the bigger message here. The world can be a hard place, for dogs, for people, for all of us. We all carry scars. We all carry baggage from our past. We all have moments when we feel like we can't trust, can't love, can't move forward. But maybe all we need is someone who sees us for who we really are. Not for our mistakes, not for our pain, but for the potential we have inside. Max didn't just need training. He didn't just need discipline. He needed connection. He needed to feel safe. He needed to know that not all people would hurt him. That there was still hope. And sometimes, it's the smallest, most unlikely people who can show us that hope. The ones who don't see brokenness. The ones who just see you. And choose to love you anyway. Max's story didn't end with a perfect fairy tale. But it did end with a second chance. A new life. A new beginning. So, what can we learn from Max? Maybe it's that no matter how tough life gets, no matter how far we fall, there's always a chance for change. A chance for growth. A chance to trust again. To love again. And all it might take is someone willing to believe in us.